Welcome back. There are plenty of changes in store for the Living Desert, which is reopening on Monday. To help explain what will be different for visitors, I spoke with President and CEO of the Living Desert, Alan Monroe. Alan, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Peter. We're glad to talk to the community about the plans to reopen the Living Desert Zoo and Gardens this weekend.
You know, it's hard to believe, Alan, it was only 3 months ago that I was with all of you on the gold carpet for your 50th anniversary. So much has changed since then.
It is. It seems like a whole nother lifetime ago when we so quickly lost track of days and weekends as the events of COVID unraveled and changed how we live our lives. But we're glad that we're finally at this place where the state and the county have said it's safe to reopen facilities like the Living Desert, obviously with some precautions in place, where we can start to move back to enjoying the great things that Coachella Valley has to offer.
So first off, before we get to the reopening details, what has been the impact of this pandemic on the Living Desert? I know there have been some tough decisions.
Unfortunately, there have. You know, as a private nonprofit corporation, we relied almost predominantly for our operating budget from gate-generated revenue. And so when we closed our gates on May 17th, that revenue dried up to zero. And so the spring break is the busiest time for us, end of spring season. And so we lost about $3.5 million in revenue, which is a pretty big impact for a nonprofit. Fortunately, we had both a little bit of reserves financially that we could draw upon. And we've had such a wonderful outpouring of support from the community. We initiated a program called Mission Animal Care to let the public know that even though we're closed and even though we're going through some financial difficulties, that our commitment to the care of the animals was not going to waver. They were still getting, all the attention that are from the animal care team and from our vets. But we did need a little bit of help to make sure that we can continue that into the future. And so we were able to raise just under $1 million in the last 3 months from the community. And those are donations large and small. And the stories that came with those donations were really heartfelt. We got a few that said, I was just laid off also, and so I'm in a tough financial strait, but here's $5. It's all that I can do, but I still support the Living Desert and want to make sure that you guys can continue moving forward. And when I hear stories like that, it tells me that we really are a valued Coachella Valley jewel, and that the experiences we have here to offer over the last 50 years have really meant a lot to the residents that live here.
You must be very excited about Monday and the reopening. How are things going to be different for folks when they come visit?
Well, we are putting in place what are kind of the standard COVID-19 restrictions that you see in so many other businesses that are starting to reopen up. The first off is we are going to require social distancing when you're visiting the park to keep groups of people, and families can obviously stay together, but if you're not in a core nuclear family, you should be separated out from the other people. We are going to require masks on grounds. We're a science organization, and the science clearly says that social distancing plus masks is a great way of protecting not only the guests that are coming, but also the staff and the volunteers that work here, and even the animals will benefit from that. And then in addition, we're going to limit capacity in the park and require that all of our guests, including our members, go online and reserve a time-ticketed entry. That way, when they come to the park, there will not be a long line of people that have to wait in and have potential bumping of shoulders and things like that. By going online and picking, a 9 o'clock next Tuesday, you'll know you're one of only a few number of people that will come into the park that day. And the electronic ticketing will enable that you don't have to come in contact with a staff member. You can download the ticket onto your phone, and you just get your smart device, and it can get scanned as you're walking in. So there's no wait, there's no contact, there's no fumbling for change and credit cards. And so I think this will help us make sure that our guests, even though we have an outdoor facility and the risks are low, we're trying to make sure the risk can be as low as possible.
And are you able to bring back some of the employees now who had to be laid off previous?
We will. And so as we start to gear up and have more need for customer-facing staff, we'll be rehiring those back. We're rehiring more of our facilities and custodial staff to help us on the sanitation and the disinfection that needs to happen. And then hopefully as attendance picks up, especially as it goes into the start of next season and the temperatures get a little bit cooler, we can bring back more and more of those staff that we had to lay off.
And I have another question. This is going to sound maybe a little silly, but the animals, I mean, at this point, it's been a couple of months since they haven't seen people coming to visit? Is it going to be a little different for them making that adjustment to now seeing crowds?
I think a little bit. It's one of the things that's interesting to watch is that while we were shut down, for the animals, the life went on just as normal. And so there were births that happened over the last 3 months. So there are new animals that have not seen crowds of people. Our African wild dogs, for instance, we had a litter of 11 of them that were born back in January. And just as we were ready to start coming out of the den and greeting the world and seeing what it's all about was when we were able to shut our doors. And so they've not seen crowds of people. And so as inquisitive animals that are really in tune to what's happening within their spaces, they certainly notice when we started having more attention and more guests coming back to the park. It'll perk up their interest.
All right, Alan, before we let you go, anything else you wanted to let the community know?
I think one thing we should certainly mention is that the support we've gotten from the local Coachella Valley leaders. As you're working through the governor's roadmap for reopening, there were lots of questions. And so I was able to draw upon the mayors of both La Quinta and Palm Desert and Indian Wells to help write letters of support that they had reviewed our opening plans and they were comfortable with our reopening. State Assemblyman Chad Mays was a part of that, and obviously worked with Riverside County and Supervisor Perez to help make sure the state was aware that there were organizations like the Living Desert that were outdoors, could provide healthy, safe recreation opportunities for people as we slowly start to reopen all the businesses and other activities that make the Coachella Valley such a great place to live.
Alan, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, Peter.